Welcome to Women at Halftime podcast, but not just for women, for you men too. If you're at mid-career or the halftime of life, our inspirational topics are not only fun, but also meant to help you maximize and write your next chapter. Right here with me, Deborah Johnson. Well, hello, this is Deborah Johnson here with the Women at Halftime podcast. And I love the subject we're going to talk about today is winning with a never give up attitude. And it's a fun subject for me, talking about persistence and tenacity. And as I approach this today, I want to remind you that I usually write an article with most every podcast, especially the ones I speak about, but even the interviews. So look for those. Make sure that you're on our newsletter, goalsforyourlife.com/newsletter, and you won't miss a single one. You're also notified about other podcasts and offers that I put out, a lot of new music that you might want to click in, and some videos as well. And make sure that you're getting our books. This is my latest, Stop Circling. It's a great little book, easy to read, very short chapters, and easy to digest, and the principles in it are wonderful. And as I talk about, never give up. And another little book that I wrote is called The Summit. That was the one right before, which is an allegory. And it talks about a character that never gives up. And she ends up getting to her summit. And it's a wonderful little story. It's a wonderful gift book, by the way. And I'm just starting to offer signed copies. So you can get all that information on my newsletter. So make sure that you don't miss a single one. So let's start diving in on this subject of never give up. Now, to never give up doesn't mean that one will never change her mind. Tenacity and fortuitousness, it includes the flexibility to evaluate and shift focus if needed. However, many people, they just quit too soon. One of the phrases that Winston Churchill, who lived in 1874 to 1965, he was known best for during World War II, was to never give in, never give in, never, 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 in nothing, great or small, large or petty, never give in, or as I say, never give up, except to convictions of honor and good sense. Well, I think that stated the principle that he believed in quite clearly, and it's quoted a lot these days, never, never, never give up. But to never give up is easier to profess than to actually apply. Now, some have defined a state of insanity as repeating the same action over and over, obtaining the same results, which is often failure. But failure is usually the outcome from the lack of careful evaluation and refusal to change. It gives us warning signs. So to not give up and experience success is most effective with evaluation and flexibility. Never give up is an inspiring message, and it's one that's very relevant as it applies to relationships, to health decisions, to business, and many additional areas of life. So I'm going to cover some basic principles to apply here, and I'm sure you can come up with your own to add to those. So number one, let's define where you want to be. So this is where we create realistic goals and check on them regularly. Now, I have some goal-setting worksheets. It's one of our most popular downloads. So make sure that you get this. The link is in the article. Walt Disney, he lived from 1901 to 1966. Most of you are familiar with him. He had a dream, and his goal was to be the very best animator. But he faced bankruptcy and impending failure. But he dreamed of a park that would be the happiest place on earth. So Disneyland, it opened on July 17, 1955 in Anaheim, California, and they planned for success. However, the first day of operation became known as Black Sunday, as it was chaotic and plagued with issues. With a capacity of 15,000 visitors, an estimated 28,000 showed up, along with traffic jams. Sounds like today in many instances, although they've limited the entrance now. But many of the rides did not work, and neither did the water fountains with the temperature over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Can you imagine? But Walt, he remained optimistic with his goal stated clearly. Now, I have worked for the Disney organization in the entertainment division for many years, and that mission still stands. Though it's tempting to dilute at times, I know, but there are positive slogans painted backstage on most every wall, keeping the end goal in mind. Maybe we should paint slogans on our walls. So there are many examples of the importance of defining a destination, from determining a flight plan to implementing a treatment for an illness. It all takes a plan. The path can shift and change with evaluation, but determining the end goal saves time, it saves resources, and increases the chance for success. Now, some of our, again, I mentioned some of our most popular downloads are on goal setting. And so I have a number of goal setting sheets for even nutritional timing and some others, and budget. So make sure that you click in on the article and that you get those. They're absolutely free. So number 2, an attitude of perseverance. Tenacity and perseverance are words that are thrown around by many coaches today. When I was working on my very first album, it was called Destiny. The engineer called me tenacious. Well, I had to go look up the word. I wondered if he was calling me a bad name, tenacious. I had never really been called that before. Well, so I have since that day proudly owned that characteristic, as I found how important tenacity is as a composer, a creative artist, and a writer. Also an entertainer. It's the same thing, rehearsing. And history also teaches us the importance of perseverance. On March 15th, 1915, the British Navy attacked the Turks at the Dardanelles. Now, there was a terrific naval barrage from the guns on the shore. 3 ships had been sunk, and finally at noon, the British Navy withdrew, never to take that point during the engagement. But what they didn't know was that the Turks had only 60 seconds of ammunition left. And at that very moment, they were preparing to surrender. But the British quit. Had the British Navy, which was their strong point, they were a strong Navy, had they been persistent and continued to press the battle, well, they would have taken the Dardanelles, they would have split the enemy forces and closed the war years earlier, saved millions of lives. So this example, it raises a good question. Are you quitting too soon? You may be feeling stuck, but you also may be only 60 seconds away from success. Now, I wrote about this in my book. Stuck is not a 4-letter word. I'm looking, as we're doing the video, I think I have a copy right here so you can see. And it's in this book. And I also have a course outlined with a lot of the principles in this, 7 Steps to Getting Unstuck, which is called Change Your Life, Get Unstuck. And I put it in that course as well. It's over 40 sessions long. It's a wonderful course. And this illustration, though, from history, it reminds us to look carefully at our situation and evaluate honestly what it will take to complete a task that we've begun. Are we quitting too soon? So number 3, take responsibility and accept failure. Now, I'm going quickly through these, but make sure you get the article. Accepting failure is a part of life. And there are many small examples that we can provide, from eating the wrong foods while dieting, we've all been there, to the failure of preparing adequately for a business or sales meeting. We've also always been there. All of us have been there, I'm sure. And we can take responsibility for those types of failures and evaluate then what changes need to occur, maybe eating different foods, having different foods around the house. But what changes so we can be successful in the future? And the problem lies with the tendency to beat oneself up and just quit trying, giving up. And there's also the temptation to become very self-focused with an imposter syndrome and a not good enough attitude. And it takes courage and the resolve to never give up, persevering through failure and uncertainty. Now, I've known many starting out their entrepreneurial journey. They're so excited. They're full of life and dreams. But then I never hear of their work again after about a year. They give up. Thomas Edison, he lived from 1847 to 1931. He's known for inventing the light bulb in 1879, but he failed over 1,000 times before finally succeeding. I'm sure you probably heard that. But instead of giving up, he famously said, "I've not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways it won't work." Well, other things he's done, he also went on to be a pioneer in the motion picture industry, developing the phonograph and early projection instruments, so we can see those movies in theaters or even on our home screens now. He didn't give up. Who knows how many times he failed on those? So 4, seek wise perspective. Now, one of the 3 main principles that I share in my book, Stop Circling, is the value of perspective. And perspective can help one to gain objectivity, a change of a mindset, and a picture change. And when I think of perspective, I relate it to flying. On most flights, I like to view the terrain far below the clouds, as well as view how the streets and the cities are laid out, especially if I have a window seat. And some neighborhood grids they're similar just to a graph paper, straight lines and squares. But others curve in what seems like a random pattern. But behind all the different layouts is a plan and perspective that's engineered and drawn to obtain the desired result. Otherwise, we drive on roads that went to nowhere. This perspective is extremely valuable for the end product, both on the ground and viewed from the air. As it relates to our lives, most people will benefit from obtaining wise perspective in relation to the specific situation that comes from an outside source. So obtaining wise perspective is applicable no matter what level we are at. We can all benefit. Now, I realize that there are some instances that are just out of our control. And for those circumstances, this is one of my favorite personal quotes that I've made, is when a door closes, look for an open window. And if the window is closed, look for a crack in the wall. There are countless coaches and mastermind groups, but please choose carefully. Make an informed and a prudent decision on who to trust for gaining additional perspective. And I have a podcast out, Common Sense, coming out. Make sure that you listen to that one as well. That applies to getting perspective, by the way. 5, a growth mindset. Vincent van Gogh, he lived from 1853 to 1890, is an example of a talented and gifted artist that incorporated a fixed mindset. I put a link to the book Mindset in this article because it's a great book to read. I've read it several times. And Van Gogh is now regarded as one of the greatest painters of all time, but during his lifetime, he struggled to make ends meet, and he sold only one painting. But he eventually became so discouraged that he stopped painting altogether, and he tragically died by suicide at the age of 37. Now, Van Gogh's mental health challenges are attributed by some to a bipolar disorder, though he was never diagnosed. And if that was truly the case, it's very unfortunate that the world lost such a talent too soon. But mental health challenges aside, a growth mindset is the belief that you can develop your skills and your abilities through hard work and dedication and not giving up. Challenges become opportunities for growth. A limiting or a fixed mindset, it lies with those who state, well, this is just the way I am, along with the attitude that, well, there's not much that can be done to change. I'm sure you've met those people. I have. Well, that attitude within a marriage, let me tell you, that's extremely destructive and isolating, with one partner usually enabling and compensating for the other. It's not fair. So evaluate your own life in this. I want to kind of end with an illustration of a marathon. I've written an article about this. I've done a podcast about this, and it will be linked in the article. But I like to compare our life's journey at times to a marathon. Now, at the start of the 26.2 miles, we may feel anxious or overwhelmed by what's ahead. And we might feel fatigued and doubt our ability to finish the race. And this may often occur also at mid-career or the halftime of life. Now, I've never actually run a marathon, but I know how many experience like the wall around mile 20. Glycogen, which are the sugars and the carbohydrates that we carry in our body, they're depleted and there's a drop in energy. And many feel like quitting at this point. And in the final stretch, the finish line, it's so close, yet it feels so far away. And again, I've never run a marathon, but I have just read so many people accounting the same principle. But just like a marathon runner, it's important to push through and overcome obstacles, to never give up. So life is somewhat of a race. Usually it's more of a jog. It's not just a fast race, but it's consistent. And if we're fortunate, it's long and a life that can be well lived and productive. And I want to encourage you, especially if you are at mid-career, at the halftime of life. This is the mission I have gone about speaking about at this point in my life, because there are so many not using their skills, their experience, their resources, what they have to give. Maybe you've given up, or you've said, oh, okay, I'm tired, no more. But explore some options on places that you can start giving back, on what you can do for your next chapter. With reports on longevity, with medical advances, many are living longer. Many feel like they have to keep working because of what's going on in our society as far as inflation. There are options. The important principle is to never give up. You might be feeling low on those sugars and carbohydrates running your own marathon. But get some nourishment, get some perspective, some wise perspective. Take time to evaluate your goals. That's important. And I reevaluate my goals often, actually. I'm not set in stone. Now, what's more set in stone for me are my core values. I know what I stand for. And that's important. It's important for me to share. It's important for me to keep front and center of my life because it helps me out even in my scheduling. I want to make time for my family, for my husband. If you've followed any of my live streams, we've been married a number of years, and Greg is on this podcast with me once a month. We come on together. So you want to make sure you catch him too. He's great, very handsome. He provides a lot of insight in a lot of areas as a former professional athlete and an RIA, registered investment advisor. He's had a lot of experience. So it's nice for us to share some of those experiences together, especially as we've been married for so many years, and we understand relationships as well. With that growth mindset, never give up. And if you are one of those, even in a relationship, that says, oh, this is just the way I am, I'm never going to change, please evaluate carefully, because at this point in a relationship, it's worth doing the work. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you continue to click into our newsletters, goalsforyourlife.com/newsletter, as well as connect with us on our other sites, Deborah Johnson Speaker. I do come out and speak at a certain number of events, live events. I take a certain number per year. And also DJ Works Music. I have a lot of product. Part of my job right now is to promote. I have a lot of product. So get our newsletters and you will get notice about those as well. So thanks again for being with me. I love this format and the podcast. I will be with you again next week. So make sure you listen, that you follow, and that you share. Thanks again for being with me today. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you for joining us. It is because of our wonderful listeners like you that we keep going strong week after week. We'd love it if you'd share and follow us to not miss a single show and even write a review. You can also find all of our articles, products, and links at womenathalftime.com.